Moving to West Africa, the Ebola outbreak in Guinea and Sierra Leone is expected to take all of 2015 to stamp out and may persist even longer because of dwindling financing, the World Health Organization warned recently. As the nation's most affected fight to purge out the Ebola threat, what has been the social, economic and political effect of the Ebola outbreak in a country like Sierra Leone? For some insight, I'm joined by Alpha Timbo, prospective presidential candidate on Sierra Leone's People's Party SLPP ticket. Mr. Timbo, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Now, first, if we can just talk a little bit about the Ebola impact on your country. What is the state of affairs right now? How has it affected your people? Especially, let's talk about economically.
Well, thank you very much. In terms of the impact that it has caused the country, it is very much devastating. And the epidemic itself came out in a time when it was not expected at all by the vast majority of our people, including the leadership of the country. But since it came out, a lot of lives have been destroyed. And in terms of the economic impact that it has in the country, it is very difficult for that to be counted because as I speak, although considerable efforts have been made by the government, including the international community, in terms of helping the Sierra Leonean population to go through this scourge, still we are still having elements of the epidemic still going on. In terms of agriculture, right, and other economic activities, it has really affected the economic situation in the country, because the way the thing is being transmitted from one individual to another, makes it very scary, in terms of people coming together, having some communal activities and the rest. All of these things have been negatively impacted.
Yes.
So
now,
it is really a very serious problem.
Along with that, I know we're talking about people who are very, very social in the way they do things. They do things together, burials, weddings, worship and all that. How has that transformed the society in Sierra Leone, at least for the short term?
Yeah, it has really been a difficult time, especially at a time which I can remember when government was trying to come out with some intervention strategies which had to affect especially the religious aspects of our people. Sometimes when we had to go on quarantine, when government asked the whole of the Sierra Leonean people to be indoors maybe for 2 or 3 days, some of it lapsed on the Fridays and Sundays. It's really affected our religious faith. But for the national interest, I mean, most of the Sierra Leonean people were able to show understanding as far as that particular area is concerned. And when you go to Africa, particularly Sierra Leone, you go to our market situation, you see the way how the ordinary person has been affected. You go to places like Kisi Street, Sani Abacha Street, and the vast majority of the major streets in Freetown where the ordinary traders do carry out their economic activities because of the Ebola virus. It has been very difficult for them to be able to carry out that activity rather effectively.
Yes. Now, politically, there was supposed to have taken place census before the country can prepare for the next presidential election. I hear that this actually has been postponed because of the Ebola crisis. Now, how does this impact the preparations for the next presidential election?
It has really had some negative impact. As I speak, I belong to the Sierra Leone People's Party. Under normal circumstances, our party should have engaged in what we call the lower level elections, which should have taken place by now. But because of the fact that there is still this economic state of emergency, that has still not been possible. And as you rightly said, the census should have started way back last year. It was postponed as a result of the Ebola. And all of these are having some negative effects in our political situation. But what I want to see here from the opposition point of view, which we are very much mindful about, is for government to know that desperate effort should be made because the political calendar would not be allowed to be stretched.
Is there any indication that the ruling party may try to delay even further despite of conditions being favorable for census?
This is what the vast majority of people are thinking. But,
starting to speculate.
Yes, but I have always been on the positive aspect of saying that that will not happen. We have to make sure that we move along with our political calendar.
Something very interesting happened during the height of the Ebola crisis. President Hans Korom actually sacked his deputy, Mr. Samuel Sam Sumana. And for some reason, the opposition took a lot of interest in his sacking. They did not want the replacement that he put there. Why was this of interest to you? Why did you get excited about the sacking of the deputy?
That is a very important issue nationally. It has nothing to do with the vice president as a person. Speaking from an opposition point of view, we believe constitutionality is very critical. You know, in any society or setting, we have to abide by the rules and regulations, especially the national constitution, right? There is express provision with respect to the elections of the president, the vice president, etc., and how these various officers, including the vice president, can be removed from office.
So you want it
the way
to be done
it has
properly.
happened, you know, we believe from the opposition standpoint that it is illegal. It should not have been done. Some people see it as a distraction for people to forget about the way in which the Ebola epidemic has been managed and the rest of this, especially with the outbreak, especially with the outcome of the audit report, which has to do with a lot of unscathing situations about the government, the way in which they handle the Ebola
now,
epidemic.
Your party, which is the main opposition party, Sierra Leone Peoples Party, had actually threatened to embark on a nationwide campaign of peaceful demonstrations, civil disobedience, and strikes beginning March the 30th.
Yeah.
If the Deputy President Sam Sumana is not reinstated. Yeah. Now, did you carry out your threat?
We say the threat still hanging. You know, when I speak as a former trade union leader, the threat of a strike is always more important than the strike itself. The objective of that particular thing was to send signal to both the national government and the international community that the opposition is not happy about what has happened, despite the fact that we are in the opposition. The individual that is affected is not a member of our party, but we will consider that particular aspect that's an infringement in the national ethos of the society.
Very quickly, because you're an aspiring presidential candidate, if this happens and you become president or your party emerges into victory, what are the challenges you envision that you will face?
The challenges are so many. The last time I had the opportunity of talking about Sierra Leone 54 years after independence, and I managed to look at the positives, you know, from the time we attained independence. And when I looked at the area of democracy, I see that considerable improvements have been made in that particular direction, because since 1996, 2002, 2007, 2012, we have been able to conduct elections relatively peacefully. That's a big achievement for our country. And in terms of freedom and association, that to a large extent is also being guaranteed. Organizations like trade unions, they can operate freely if they choose to, without interference from government. There are a whole lot of other things. But in terms of challenges, starting from the Ebola epidemic itself, it has really exposed the weaknesses of our healthcare delivery system. So in terms of the way forward, we have to ensure that we look at a comprehensive healthcare system for our country to avoid a recurrence of this particular situation.
And you know, you'll come and tell us a little more, perhaps next year when you come back here, when you're even more ready to run. Mr. Timbo, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much. As she rightly said, I do not have the time much, but next year, certainly I will come back.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thanks a lot. Alpha Timbo is the prospective presidential candidate on Sierra Leone's People's Party SLPP ticket. Thanks for joining us. Now we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. And check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com.